Now let's show that when rate-sensitive assets are less than rate-sensitive liabilities, an increase in interest rate is not actually a good deal for a bank, and that a decrease in interest rate is beneficial for the bank. So we're saying that we're claiming that if rate-sensitive assets are less than rate-sensitive liabilities, then increase in interest rate is not good, and that decrease in interest rate is beneficial. Okay, what do we have? For the bank, according to the bank's balance sheet, the rate-sensitive assets were $20 million. Rate-sensitive liabilities were $50 million. Let's say interest rate goes up by 5%. What happens to banks' assets and what happens to banks' liabilities? So the increase of the interest rate by 5% is actually going to increase the interest income received by the bank. By how much? Let's see. So that's 5% times 20 million, which is 1 million. What is happening here is the bank gets $1 million more in interest income. So this is like a positive increase. What happens to the bank's liabilities when interest rate goes up by 5%? That's $2.5 million. This means that the bank pays $2.5 million more in interest expenses. So therefore, the difference between these two, consider $1 million as a positive number because that's the extra that the bank is receiving. And consider the $2.5 million as a negative number because that's the extra that the bank is paying. Therefore, the bank net income as a result of the increase of interest rates by 5% is going to be a negative 1.5 million. Now we can say that the bank income or bank interest income decreases by $1.5 million. So how about the bank's net margin as a result of the increase of 5% interest rate? Interest margin is defined as the percentage of the bank interest income, in this case the negative 1.5 million, out of its total assets, which is $100 million. So this is a negative 1.5% decrease. Now we can conclude that as a result of increase of interest rates by 5%, interest income goes down by $1.5 million and interest margin goes down by 1.5%. Alternatively, when interest rate goes up by 5%, goes down by 5% rather, the $1 million that we calculated in the beginning is now presenting itself as the 1 million less in interest income that the bank receives. So this is like a negative number because this is no good for the bank, right? So they receive $1 million less. But at the same time, as a result of a decrease of interest rates by 5%, the bank pays $2.5 million less. So this is kind of a good thing, more like a saving to the bank. As a result, now you have that negative 1 million, which was a bad news to the bank because they're receiving $1 million less. But the good news is that they're paying $2.5 million less. Therefore, their overall interest income, which is $1.5 million, is increasing. So the bank is benefiting from the decrease in interest rate by 5%. What happens to interest margin? Well, the interest margin is going to increase by 1.5%. I think I made a mistake here. This is an increase in interest margin.